us in there, and they said we weren't allowed to bring the cell phones in the room that day. So we just go into the classroom, and they give us an hour-long lecture on the program and everything and what it does. This is the thing. At the time, now we know it's different, but I was told at the time that this was being used only for criminal purposes. That they will monitor these emails, these phone numbers, whatever, and they will basically see if this person is doing any criminal activity, something that is actually a crime, but they're trying to do it covertly. And then if they are, they will forward the information back to you, basically in a classified document folder. And you, as the agent who requested it, can look at the information, and then you can use that information as intelligence to basically know what they're doing, and then you try to have to set yourself up to kind of be in a spot where they might be, to catch them in the crime or whatever. But you can't. You have to do it in such a way. It's called parallel construction, where you basically build the case in such a way that you're not directly linking that intelligence that you got, which is essentially unconstitutional and thus is against the Constitution of the United States, so it shouldn't be allowed because the government is breaking its own laws. You have to build the criminal case apart from that without directly linking the two, and you can't expose where that knowledge came from in court. But I mean, they're using it for pre-crime, which is basically just people mouthing off, on the phone or on the internet or whatever, to some extent. Usually, I mean, they're not going after everybody for this, but they'll use it as justification against somebody they want to get anyway, talking about, wanting to kill people or something like that. Even if, you're just like an ordinary guy and somebody screwed you over or something. And then also, I didn't know until the Snowden leaks just how extensive the surveillance was, because even though they can specifically target any individual that a special agent forwarded up to the SOD, they're blanket collecting everything too at the same time. They don't have people looking at and listening to every phone call and reading every text messages and email, but they are storing it on massive servers, a lot of which are located out in Utah, and they just have the information there going back, I don't know, 5-10 years, something like that, in case they ever call and read. In case a person ever becomes, for some reason, a person of interest or a target for some reason, so that they can go and dig through what you've been doing for the past several years, every person you talked to, every person you said something to, look at your spending habits and all that stuff. And obviously, if you think about that, you can realize very quickly with the political agenda that is going on, where things could head very quickly if a particular part of the government wanted things to go to that way very quickly. Because assuming they have tremendous amount of data on most of the country's population, what they could do with that data if they wanted to push a particular agenda and the repercussions that could have on the population. Basically, you could see the United States become total, concentration camp tyranny overnight if they wanted to do that very easily. And they have all the tools necessary to do that at their disposal. I'm not saying that. I'm not going to go out on a limb and say that that's what they have planned, because if they do, I don't know. I never got that briefing if they do.
Well, but control is one of these major goals of these people.
That's why they exist. Control.
Yeah, it's like we put the computer chips in the brains and make you eat the bugs. I don't know what the guy.
It's just to maintain control and to keep the power structure in place as it is, even though a lot of the things you see going on in Western civilization right now make you like, this is a joke. They would call it the clown world, right? Because it is. You have financial system, the economy is a clown world, the legal system, the judicial system, the political system. It's all like rigged and funky dunky. It's like a big joke. But how do you maintain control of a joke? Well, with an iron fist, that's how you do it. You keep the joke going endlessly, even though everybody knows it's a joke, by forcing people to get in line.
Well, everything's like artificial. It seems like that over there in the West now. It's like I don't know. Yeah, everything is. I mean, it's even like this conflict going on in Gaza. It's like none of that would have happened if the United States wouldn't be, backing Israel to the hilt. I mean, if these people just had to defend themselves based on their own abilities, they would have been making friends with all their neighbors, and nothing would have been happening. But I don't know. It's the same thing with Ukraine,
It's costing Israel about 270 million a day.
Well, that's what they say. Is if that's
Yeah, that's what I
borrowed from
heard
the
too,
U.S.,
yeah.
they're probably not going to pay it back. They always let Israel not pay the loans back. They say, and then Israel can say, "Well, we've never defaulted on a loan because it's always
It's like aid. It's not even a
what's
loan.
yeah. Well, they say it's a loan. They
Oh,
say
they
it's a
do?
loan. Yeah, they do that. I mean, I remember this years ago. I used to
They're
follow
just forgiving the
Israel
loans or
a
something.
lot. I used to follow them a lot, and it was like I think that back it was like a 4 billion every year, or 5 billion, or something like that.
It's more
And
than
then they
that.
forgive the debt. The Congress forgives the debt, so
Yeah.
that Israel can say we've never defaulted on a loan because they just never make them pay it back. And say it doesn't exist anymore.
Oh yeah, they've been giving them, I think, almost like 300 billion since the country came into existence.
And then everybody talks about Trump, and there's a lot of good things about Trump, but Trump loves Israel.
Yeah, I know.
And to me, this is just my opinion. If you to base somebody on their actions, I think he hates Muslims. Because he's never done anything for Muslims. It's not that he's attacked the Muslims, but he doesn't do anything for them at all. And yet he knows, well, he loves Israel, and Israel does things to Muslims, and he doesn't say anything about it.
He's playing to that old base of like what I would I don't want to insult any guys here, but the boomers, the old conservative Republican boomer side of things in the United States, that voter base over there, who is traditionally like always been very pro-Israel, and and he's also pulling in some of that like that nationalistic instinct from that side of the Republican Party too. As far as going after those white voters who are on that side.
It's donors. It's the donors.
Yeah,
Sheldon Adelson is very pro-Israel, and Trump puts a lot of his money in. I mean, I think a lot of his fortune was gone after his first presidency. It's not like Obama, who got fabulously wealthy after his presidency, and a lot of leaders become fabulously wealthy, but Trump actually got much poorer. So it's a huge difference.
Because he didn't take a salary and he wasn't there to run his own businesses. He had his like kids running them, basically, and some of the management and stuff. So
Zelensky's far richer than Trump now. That's a known fact.
It's a rumor out there, is what I'm hearing.
Well, I think it's, he owns like virtually the entire media industry there himself personally. And everybody knows he's shaving off the top. He's getting all this money and.
Oh yeah, that 113 billion or whatever they gave him. I don't know how much of that has been taken out of gone into the pockets of the oligarchs over there. Now it's 113 from the U.S. Supposedly there's another 120 billion from the collective like EU and other Western countries that have just dumped in there.
And then all of his houses. I mean, he's just probably let me buy some houses. I can't do that.
Yeah, he's got like 4 or 5 different
Alex
countries.
Christoforou was good at that.
2 in London, 1 in Florida, 1 in Tel Aviv, at least.
Wow. Yeah, he's got all I knew is about the one in Miami. He's got the one in Crimea, and then I knew he had a few others. Just off of, supposedly some of the lesser Ukrainian oligarchs were buying cottages in the Swiss Alps or whatever. All of a sudden, after the aid started pouring in, a year and a half ago.
Who was that? Rezhnikov, I think. He was the Minister of Defense, right? He was the guy that he had catering businesses, and they found out he was cheating the soldiers on their food. Remember? Then he had to resign, I think. And he bought his daughter a house in Cannes, with like 5 buildings and a big swimming pool. That's just for his daughter, and I think he is now ambassador in the UK, Ukrainian ambassador to the UK, something like that. But anyway, and look at who's Yatsenyuk, Yuk, he's our man. Remember Victoria Nuland?
Yeah.
And they were saying, I don't know if that's true, but he's extremely rich now, and he was like a lower middle class kind of guy. He was I don't know, some guy with, getting the money like a regular guy for a regular job, going somewhere, working in a department store or something. And he's very, very rich now, and under the protection of the United States. So,
yeah,
Yuk's our man.
It's just like spitting in the face of the public too of the United States and the EU when they've done these things that are obviously hurting the average citizens in the European Union, especially in terms of energy costs, but also in their economies in general, because of Germany heavy manufacturing and stuff. You need the energy to do the manufacturing. It's hurting pretty much their entire economy. And then you see like the top like 0.002% of the Ukrainian elites skimming like several million apiece, probably off of those gigantic aid packages, and just pocketing it and then blowing it on themselves and their families or whatever. Like that's meant to keep your country going during this whole thing. But here you got the, and now that happens, that's just corruption. It's going on all over the world to some extent. Although I would say in the Western countries, it isn't as blatant as they're doing it in Ukraine. And the way it's done is a lot different.
Yeah, I've heard so much about Ukraine for the last couple of decades, but that there's corruption on every scale. I mean, the country wouldn't exist without corruption. It was even broadcast in the United States before, Ukraine became the model of democracy and all that sort of stuff.
Model.
They were talking about
most corrupt country in Europe.
They were saying that, and then all of a sudden they're the greatest country, and Zelensky is a hero. I keep looking for his cape. I didn't. I thought he was flying through the air. Something.
I got nothing against the Ukrainian people at all. I've been there.
No.
I went there for like 3 weeks back in 2018. There's really essentially no difference, no major difference between Ukrainians, Belarusians, and Russians. At least the Slavic ones. I mean, they do just speak different languages. They have, not that they always speak those different languages. Like in Belarus, they speak Russian here all the time, but they have their own distinct languages if they want to use them. But Ukraine is definitely not as well kept as Belarus is in general. Like Kiev reminds me a lot like New York City, where you'd be walking down the street and there'd just be a trash can that's overflowing, tipped over on the sidewalk. Whereas you don't see that here in Belarus, really, not often. One thing about Belarus too. Almost no graffiti anywhere inside the city.
Yeah,
none. Yeah, none.
Whenever I see someone on YouTube, I try to show it.
People not vandalizing stuff.
Yeah, exactly. They take care of their stuff.
Yeah, everything. You go out of this building here, and all the playgrounds are perfect, and all that sort of thing. Nothing's damaged, nothing's broken.
The only place. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Also, look at the youth. They're respectful to elder people.
Usually,
they have like an etiquette as well.
Yeah. When I do business with like a younger kid here, usually they're very nice, very decent to me.
Yeah.
Not to say that I'm old, but So the only place I ever saw graffiti, after 5.5 years being here, the only place I ever saw graffiti was down in Brest by the Polish border.
And
only one.
And Grodno as well, near the Polish border.
So you're getting away from the center of Belarus and getting more towards the west. Yeah, you see the graffiti.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's funny.
But you can find graffiti, but maybe like go on some like little back streets. Somebody might have put something, and I was in my YouTube. Whenever I see something, I say, and it's like wow, look at that. There's some graffiti. It's a little piece like maybe 6 inches by 8 inches or something like that. It's like because it's a.
Really? I've never seen any in Minsk, I swear to God.
Well, just little things,
Yeah. Well, they do have the murals and stuff that they've painted around the city in various places. And there's one area, I forget what the name of it is, but I went there a few times, where they have a whole street that's full of a bunch of murals painted on the sides of the building. But that's different. That's not graffiti. That's,
Is that where all the food is? In that?
I don't know what the name of it is, but they have that whole area.
It's near the Minsk Arena, stadium.
I think it's moving in that direction, yeah.
Or maybe it's by, there's a place similar to that where there's a lot of young people.
The whole street is just full of food places as well.
There was a lot of restaurants there.
Yeah.
Oh, there's one place. It's.
You're talking about Zabitskaya? Or it's down by the Namiga? No.
There's one by Pirshamyskia. You take that metro, and that's a strange metro. I call it the Matrix kind of thing. It's the only one where you have to exit on the other side of the car.
Oh, that one stop.
Yeah.
That's where it is. That's where I think it is. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And then you go, instead of, if you get off on one side, you're right on the river, and you can be jogging, or you can get off the metro, go up the steps practically, and then jog along the river, and beautiful scenery thing. Yeah. Or you can go into the other side, and it's a lot of young people. And I didn't go there, because you can't film if you're going to put it on YouTube. You can't film when there's a bunch of music going on, or you may as well, because how you
speak. Yeah.
So anyway, but I filmed around a little bit, and I was thinking, wow, I never knew about this place. And, a lot of things painted on the walls and all that sort of stuff, like a party area. I think I made 3 videos.
There's a university and a student accommodation there as well. That's why there's a lot of the young people.
It's almost kind of like a hippie area, sort of, for like the Soviet Union version of a hippie area.
Yeah.
Sort of. I mean, more like they just said, hey, they'll take this street and you guys can put up, murals and stuff. I mean, because they catch you doing graffiti. And the reason there's no graffiti is probably because they're going to hit you with a big fine, or they're going to might even throw you in jail for a while. Mm-hmm. So it's great they keep that under control, but I guess they kind of wanted to let maybe them have an outlet for it, for their artistic creativity or whatever. So let them do whatever on that street as long as it was like organized and they said, hey, this is what we're going to draw, this is what we're going to paint, and they let them do it.
Well, there's another place that's also like a party area, and it's called the Sandbox. I don't know if you've heard or been. I put it on my YouTube channel, and then some Belarusian people says, "Where is that? We don't know where that's at. Where is this place?" It's a lot of all different kinds of food things. Lots of American sort of stuff like hot dogs, and I mean all sorts of things you can't. And it's like steampunk because they have like old motorcycles and old cars, kind of like up on something and steel, scaffolding sort of thing, and playing music and people, mostly a lot of food and beer and things like that.
Well, during the summer, it's great. You find a lot of places sort of doing that, working that vibe when you go towards the city center and stuff. A lot of themed restaurants. I went to one this summer that had like a fire truck theme to it. And my son was into it because they had a big fire truck, like an old Soviet fire truck. But obviously, had no engine or anything in it, but the structure of it was there, the frame. And he loved it because it was like, oh, he likes fire trucks, he likes cars. And you go inside, and the whole restaurant was like fire trucks and firehouse theme with poles and stuff.
Oh, they do so much for kids. If you ever been to the shopping mall, Momo, there's kids rides and things all over. I live not so far from there, and it's lots of things for children. I mean, society here is,
it's very family orientated.
Yeah. When you think about all the crap that's going on in the world, and like the stuff in Israel bombing all these kids, and then all this organ trade, and what the children trafficking and all that kind of stuff, and it's like. And then you have Putin rescuing these children from someplace in Ukraine, and then
they try to make it out to be like he's kidnapping them. Like
and then so then they say he's and the criminal court says he's arrest this guy, but then when you find out what they are doing in Ukraine and things, and they no, there's nothing mentioned there.
I mean, like in Israel, like with the Israel bombing the Hamas children and everything, and they Turkey has filed complaints about this, and the Egyptians too, trying to put pressure, like saying like, listen, like. This is obviously a war crime, like look how you went after Putin because of just taking children out of a war zone. And even though, not harming them or anything, just getting them out of the war zone.
And he never even had a defense. They never asked him any questions. Why did you do this? Did you do this? Or anything like that. It's just some accusations from somebody in the West. So that's all we need. Bam, you're guilty.
Guy was painted as like Genghis Khan in the Western media. Like, it was the worst thing that ever happened in world history.
I think they pinned something like that on Lukashenko too. Something with kids or whatever. I don't know if they're linking him or something with.
The fake president is saying that all the time.
Oh gosh, yeah.
The woman, the fake president.
Oh yeah, where is she now? Is she in Poland still?
I think still.
She's in Lithuania. She's in Lithuania.
Okay, all right, so she's up there now.
Yeah. The self-proclaimed Juan Guaido woman of Belarus.
I don't know how she, planned to work that out, kissing the West butt, but then like also trying to. Supposedly, she also said that she wasn't going to be like anti or like not being close with Russia. Supposedly, she said that they would continue that relationship with Russia if she got in. But it's like, how the hell are you going to do that when your backers are all Western countries, pretty much? And it's like,
it's all and look at her. I don't know what she's like as a person or anything like that, but I think her what is her profession as a school teacher? Maybe,
yeah, school teacher.
I don't even know what kind of experience she has, but you know how that is in government. I mean, you guys have seen this stuff. There's some jackals in there. I mean, they're going to control her at least immediately. Even Jesse Fuller or Jesse Ventura. Remember, he's a big, strong ex-Navy SEAL. And he was governor of Minnesota. He said they took him in a back room and said, "Listen, you made governor, but we run the thing. We run everything."
Yeah, the CIA.
What do you think they're going to do with Tikhanovskaya?
They push her around like nothing.
Oh boy!
They did it to Boris Yeltsin back in the '90s. The CIA basically was running the Russian government. There's a lot of stuff that like Mendeleev and Putin have said, in interviews and stuff that, Putin, I guess, was watching a lot of it because he was kind of like a deputy in the KGB or something then. He was watching basically Boris Yeltsin get manipulated by the CIA and stuff, and he hated it. And I'm sure they're doing the same thing with Zelensky right now too, but they don't really have to push as hard because the people, the ultranationalists in Ukraine are kind of doing the CIA's work for them.
Well, you know what? That he's surrounded. All of his bodyguards are British. Zelensky's.
Oh, really? Probably SAS or something.
Yeah, and then they're saying, well, you don't do, what we say. And it's like, well, think about it. They'll either, how easy it is. They could either knock him off and make it look like somebody else did it, or if they take off, then you got all the banderites there. They're going to take care of. I mean, take over or whatever.
when you're in a position of power, it becomes a very precarious situation as far as even if you do want to do the right thing. And that's why it's very tough to get somebody in power who is actually doing the right thing.
Well, I think he did want to do the right thing. I mean, you have that tape where he's sitting in this in a trench or something, and then with some Azov guy, and he's just some minor commander, and then Zelensky's kind of trying to act like, hey, I'm in charge here, and this guy is basically saying, well, you're not in charge. He didn't say that, but he let Zelensky know that we own you. You don't tell us what to do, and we control you. And Zelensky at that time was saying, well, we should have to make friends with the Russians and all that.
Well, he was close to making that peace deal, and you see how much the British have control over. Like little UK. I mean, of course, it used to be the UK, the British Empire. Sun never sets on them, but that was like over 100 years ago. And now it's like the UK is still trying to throw punches, like it's the big dog, and it like sends Boris Johnson over there. When Zelensky and the Ukrainians were close to having a negotiated deal with the Russians, and says, no, we're not doing that. Cut that off. No peace deal. You're fighting them, basically.
Yeah, to the last Ukrainian, I think that's.
It's like it was just a few months. I think it was April in 2022 when that happened. And well, here we are, a year and a half later, and probably another 300,000 dead Ukrainians, probably. And anywhere from 50 to 150,000 dead Russians. Who knows? I don't even know what those numbers are recently because I haven't been paying that much attention to it.
Yeah, well, I mean, when they're getting so high. But, they're coming up with a lot of these theories. You say, well, the West wants Zelensky to negotiate with Russia. And then I'm saying, I don't know about that. I don't know. There's these rumors. And
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there definitely is pressure to kind of distance and back off of it because of the whole thing going on in Israel, and then also potentially something with Taiwan and China in the future. Actually, there's probably about half a dozen potential conflicts that could flare up at any moment around the world. And I'm not talking like minor ones. I'm talking ones that are kind of like directly connected in some way with the West itself.
Yeah, Serbia.
So Serbia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Taiwan, and China, North Korea, South Korea. And there's obviously various things going on in Africa too.
Africa. Well, think about that one.
Yeah,
it's weird. I haven't heard that much about Africa.
Oh, and China, Myanmar too is about to blow up. Apparently,
Myanmar even. Huh?
Myanmar, yeah, I call it Myanmar.
Yeah,
wrong, but
I knew what you meant.
Yeah, they've had some clashes there on the border in the past several weeks, apparently, and I guess they blew up a Chinese supply truck or something recently, and it was totally in flames or whatever. I don't know if anybody died though. Situation is precarious.
Did you hear something about Danilov? What is he? Like a security
for who?
Danilov from Ukraine. I can't remember what his title is, but he's coming out saying things now to the Ukrainian people. Things are bad, and they're gonna get a lot worse.
Oh, that's sad because that means they're probably just gonna keep going.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously they're going to keep going, and even if they stop, even if the war ends, it's still not going to be good because
it won't be. But at
what
least
about heating? I mean, here it's winter. I mean, most of the time that's what they're talking about is the winter. And even this Podolyak, remember, he's saying I'm going to be sitting on the beach in Crimea in June and all this, and he's been talking. Now he's all of a sudden also changed his tune, and I guess it's maybe just because of the funding. They're not getting the funding from the West that they're starting to come to their senses. I don't know. Or their realizations.
Well, yeah. I mean, basically, the United States and the EU were propping up their entire bureaucratic apparatus of their entire government. It's not just like providing them military aid. Their whole country
all their
is
pensions.
running. Yeah, their whole country is running off of aid. You can't sustain a country like that.
Well, they're even saying that now. Oh, this is unsustainable. And I'm thinking,
of course, it's not
why
sustainable.
didn't you realize that before? When
Stupid.
You depend on everybody on the outside to keep you going, and all these weapons and this fight.
Look at it like this way. After the first 6 months go by and they're in a hot war and lots of the infrastructure is being destroyed, even if they still pull it off, say like a year and a half later, like around now, say somehow Ukraine pulled it off and won, with that much time inside the war and that much destruction that's gone on, do they think that they could just rebound their economy immediately and just start having everything okay again? No, they would still need to be subsidized by the West probably for another couple of years at least until they got back on their feet.
Well, I don't know if that's even possible. You know why? Because the West already owns most of Ukraine. What is it?
They do own quite a bit.
BlackRock and Cargill and all these. They bought up all the land and everything. Zelensky's just selling it all off, and that's where did that money go, I wonder.
Yeah, I mean, they now I'm thinking about that a bit, but that would only serve them if they won in general, and then still it would be like, yeah, it would still be, maybe you wouldn't have as much government direct aid, but it would be like the private companies dumping money into Ukraine and getting Ukrainians to rebuild their own country with private money. Maybe it would work. I don't know, but you couldn't have this massive governmental aid from the West going to the government of the Ukraine anymore, because it would be like, and then the United States and the EU would have to explain to their taxpayers why they're dumping another $50 billion into Ukraine.
Well, the other problem
after the war's over.
The other problem is demographics as well.
Oh yeah,
Lost a lot of men. A lot of people have left.
A lot of young men. A lot of their women left.
Now they're taking them out of the universities, and
they're scooping the women up now as well and putting them in the army.
Yeah, supposedly they're finding trenches full of women.
Yeah, there's been a few videos lately of that.
Ridiculous.
I saw the one with the pregnant woman.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Don't shoot me, I'm a pregnant woman. And I was like, what the Russians are saying? What the heck are you doing here? Wow,
it's sad. It's like pathetic and just kind of just miserable just to kind of see stuff like that going on, from like the Ukrainian side, and then they're still trying to claim that they're winning, in the West to some extent, not as much as
the person that came from Paris just left like a week ago, and when she left Paris, they were still telling them that Ukraine was winning, and of course, as you know, everything Russian is banned. You can't. There's no RT. There's nothing. Yeah. So as far as they know, Ukraine is winning, and she said, that's madness. It's just she knew that Ukraine wasn't winning and never has been. Yeah. I remember Tulsi Gabbard right after the thing kicked off. Tulsi Gabbard says they're going to lose. They can't possibly win. Ukraine can't win. This is insanity.
Yeah, I said it right after it started too. I was like, anybody who thinks that they're serious, the best they could do is hold Russia off, which would be, I guess, that would be kind of winning to them. Just kind of like hold their ground, basically, which they can't even. They didn't really do that. They can't even get back into the Donbass, really, not substantially, to regain that territory that's been taken from them. And they're not going to overall be able to beat Russia out, the way they're talking over there, it's like the Ukrainian army is about 2 kilometers outside of friggin' Vladivostok, friggin' on the Pacific Ocean. They're about to conquer that, and it's going to be Eastern Ukraine now. Like,
well, do you remember the tactic that Surovikin was mentioning even long ago? He was saying, grind them down. And I think they're still doing that. I think that's what Russia is doing. And it's like, and it's just unrelentless. Russia has the depth. And I hear it now. I just saw this article today that instead of, sending one bomb in some place, they're sending several bombs. They got so many bombs. They got so much stockpile, and they don't know what to do with all these bombs that Russia has made. And it's still a huge, huge amount coming. And I've got relatives, that live in some of these areas where they make this weaponry. They make tanks and bombs and things. And they said it's like full shifts and everybody's working. There's nobody out of work, and they want everybody to do overtime. That's in the
that's part of the reason their economy is growing. Is they got 3.5% growth in Russia, and at the beginning of the year,
that's Belarus. I think Russia's 2.5, which is also very good. I think Belarus was 3.5.
I heard Russia was 3.5, but either way, it's still good. The EU was projecting like 0.07 or something. Like it was growth, but it was very minuscule. And then like Germany and the UK were both going to like shrink. I think a slight percentage, but still shrinking. And then it turned out that Russia's economy is growing like the fastest it's grown since like.
And didn't Moody's say that the U.S. is minus? Didn't Moody's just recently say?
I don't know. I know their credit rating got downgraded. That was a little while back. That was like 2 months ago.
Everybody was pissed off because I think Moody's said, negative growth in the United States. And they say, well, not the United States. People
have been talking about a recession coming in the United States for like a year now, though, and like, when is it going to come? And like, and they're saying we're on the verge of it. We're on the verge of it. Like, well, technically, the definition of recession is where you have 2 quarters of negative GDP, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I haven't been following this. I don't think we're technically in a recession in the United States yet, but really, given what's going on with the banking sector, which is very scary, it could happen very quickly. God, I thought it was going to happen a few months ago when they had what was the SVB bank, and then like a few banks went under, and a bunch of
Silicon Valley and stuff like that.
Yeah, the Silicon Valley Bank, and then not talked about as much as that a bunch of local banks kind of tanked after that too. And these sort of things can just start cascade effects. And I guess they stepped in, the Fed and everything, and backed up the one bank, the depositors of the one bank with the FDIC insured their deposits so that the whole thing wouldn't just like start a cascade effect on all the banks. But those things, they can just spiral out of control very quickly. Like we were talking about in the beginning about, everything happens slow at first and then just kind of takes off. Like it goes exponential at a certain point because it's like, you double a number. Like you start off with 1, then you go to 2, then you go to 4, then you go to 8. Right. Eventually you start at the top. Very quickly it becomes a huge number just because you're doubling numbers. It doesn't have to be that many places. Because at a certain point, it just goes exponential, and then it's gigantic.
Yeah. One interesting thing is, what do you think about the future of Ukraine? That is really something. I remember it long ago. I don't know when was that, a year ago. Lukashenko surprised everybody. He said, one day Ukraine will be part of the Union state. And everybody, well, between like Belarus, Russia, and Ukraine. And I was sitting there wondering, because there are. What were these objectives of the military operation? One to demilitarize and denazify, and of course to save the people in the Donbass from getting constantly bombed by Western Ukraine. But it's this is just some fantasy that I'm thinking of all the time. I say, well, how in the heck can you save Ukraine? With all that corruption, and it's just in every single aspect of their in their economy and their society. How in the heck can you get rid of that? And I said, who can do that? And I'm thinking, well, the only one I can think of is Lukashenko. And Lukashenko loves Ukraine. I don't know if you've ever heard him. He says, oh, it's so great. It's got all this potential. And look at Belarus. Look at Belarus. When you think about Belarus, they have no potential. Look at they have, it's below average farming potential, but yet
the resources
really
of the country.
Yeah, they have no natural resources.
It's
basically,
a landlocked
clean water.
Country.
Yeah, they don't even have a port, and yet Belarus is doing fine that way. But it's very precarious. But he is able to keep everything going that way. He's like a master. And just think what he could do with Ukraine. And he could get rid of the corruption. Look at there's virtually no corruption in Belarus. There's always corruption everywhere somewhere. But here he's got it
under control a lot. It's not.
That's probably the lowest in all of Europe. I would say all of Western Europe is more corrupt, and I would say that there's no country in Eastern Europe, that is less corrupt than Belarus. So it's
well, it depends on who you're asking that question to, but
the opposition side.
Yeah, if you ask somebody in a Western outlet or even a Western like NGO or something like World Freedom Index or something, which is the most corrupt country or least corrupt country in the world, I think like Denmark comes out as the top least corrupt country in the world. Here's the thing about the West, though. The West has corruption in a very different way. And essentially, like in the U.S., it's kind of like legalized corruption.
Yeah, okay. Institutionalized corruption.
Yeah, it's basically corruption, but they don't call it that. What is lobbying, for fuck's sake? I'm going to curse like that. For God's sake, what the hell is lobbying? Lobbying is essentially like greasing the wheels of politicians, essentially, to get things you want done, all right? And to garner support for a politician by, doing certain things. And it's legalized, and then you got stuff where these jobs that are given out, stuff like, oh, though technically you're not paying that person, they're not tossing them $5 million in a suitcase. What they're doing is after they leave office, they're giving them like a job that's probably like them not even showing up for work, or like sitting at their home office and taking phone calls from like the CEO every so often and saying like, this is what I think about that. This is what I think about that. And then getting $5 million a year.
Yeah, they're on the board.
Yeah, they're on the board and they're getting a few $1 million paycheck. That's the sort of stuff that goes on in the West. Whereas corruption in like the more visible sense that you would talk about in Ukraine and stuff would be more open, less hidden, and technically under their laws not legalized either. And then also you see like the street level corruption where you get pulled over by a cop and he says, hey, give me, $50 and I'll let your ticket go or whatever. That sort of corruption. And sorry, go ahead.
Well, just since you just mentioned that, I remember I was in Germany and I was, talking to people, and I, back then I was, of course, learning a lot about Belarus, and I said I was going to Belarus and all that. As a matter of fact, I think I'd come back and I was working in the dental lab, and I was, talking to a lot of my colleagues there that from Germany, and they had gone like I think like through Belarus. They were going somewhere. I don't know, to Greece or some. Anyway, they were making some land trip. People, and they were talking about like Romania and all that,
Yeah.
and they said, yeah, the Belarus. They thought it was like corruption because that's what they hear.
Yeah.
And they hear about that. Back in those days when all of the Eastern Europe, most of them were all like corrupt countries and all that, and they thought, oh, like. The thing coming through, I don't know if they stayed a day or something, and anyhow, but they filling some little paper out or whatever, and they tried to give the ink pen to the woman or guys or whatever that they had to fill out the paperwork through when they were coming through on a train.
Yeah.
And then they said no, like they don't want
Couldn't
this.
take the
Yeah,
pen?
no, they don't even take a ballpoint pen. And they told me about the other countries, like Romania. And one of these guys that were sitting there, they said, yeah, they were driving through, and they were going with 3 people or whatever like
Yeah.
that. And then they said they're not going to let them go through Romania unless they pay some money.
Yeah.
And the guy said, that's friggin' corruption. We're not going to pay you any money. We want to see your supervisor. And then the
Yeah.
supervisor comes, and they said to the supervisor, this guy here's trying to make us pay 40 euros to come pass through here. There's no law. And the supervisor says, 40 euros? That's too little. It's 80 euros. So,
Oh, it doesn't surprise me at all, though. Like that's the sort of thing. Yeah.
yeah.
Mexico, same thing. With all that type of stuff.
I've seen movies like that. That's
Yeah.
What was it? The Millers. I don't know if you saw that movie. Then Corrupt Cop. I don't know.
I never had anything like that over here. I could see the potential for it more so in Ukraine and to some extent in Russia too, but probably not if you're going through like general government stuff like customs or whatever in Russia, because I never had any problems with them. I've been stopped by police officers in here only twice, and it was both for jaywalking.
And they're friendly, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Well, actually, the first time I was only here for a few months, and this guy's kind of, he's a little. I think he might have been. This guy seemed like really young. Seemed like he was new on the job. And as somebody who was a police officer for a long time, he was doing kind of something that's kind of cheap. He was sitting out in front of all right. So you go to the language university, MSLU, right? Minsk State Language University.
Was that the one by?
It's over by Plusha Pelomore, Victory Square.
Oh, where that it's got a round metro
Yeah.
station. Yeah.
I don't know if you go. I don't know if you know, but you go there and you walk there, and there's a one-way street right next to where the Russian language department is on that street outside. There's it's a very small street, probably only like 3-4 meters across. I don't even know. I'm still getting used to using meters and centimeters, but it's very small. And there's a cop who was hanging out there, and he saw me crossing on foot, like not right where the crosswalk was. And he acted like when he came up to me and stopped me, I thought it was like, he was like raiding me for drugs or something. He hopped out of his car and he said, "Come here, come here." And he gave me a ticket, whatever. But it was like $12. So it was like whatever. And people are always crossing there on foot. I mean, it's a one-way street, and the cross for it is like way down at the end. And even teachers professors who teach there were doing it. Everybody crosses where there's no crosswalk because it's a one-way street. Nobody's going to hit you there. And then the other time it happened was right over here by our complex in Minsk World here. And this was only a few months ago. And it was before they had built there was like underground passes if you go towards where the Wade building is. And they didn't open those up yet. So you had to walk across where the street is. They hadn't opened up those underground passes yet. So I walked across the street as everybody else was doing. This one officer decided to stop me. But he was cool. He was very, he didn't speak a word of English. So I had to use my broken Russian and then my Google Translate. But he was fine with it. I just said, well, I see everybody's doing it because there's no way to get over. And he's like, well, you still got to find a way to walk around or something. He's like, we'll be opening that up soon though, but I'm sorry, we won't, we're going to get to doing that. And he let me go and everything was fine.
Yeah.
No, the police here are quite okay.
Yeah, they're reasonable.
I got caught flying a drone at Independence Square, and they
yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, they detained me for a few hours, but they're like stupid tourists. Don't do it again.
Yeah.
Well, originally from Seattle, and they got, they're known for like being the most brutal police in America. So
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it was Albuquerque.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. Everybody probably says they have the most brutal, but I remember going in the army and they're talking about, oh, the German police, they don't mess around. And then my entire time in Germany, I'm saying, what are they talking about? In the Seattle area, they swagger down the street. They remember they had that town called Jazz or whatever that was called. When they defund the police and all that sort of a deal.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Chaz.
Chaz, yeah.
Chaz.
But
Yeah,
anyhow,
that was
well, the police, trust me. I've got 2 people I knew in high school have brain damage because of police beatings, and
wow.
yeah, and
Remember the suburbs growing up in Seattle, or in the city itself?
Suburb, but going into Seattle, suburbs. You go into the towns in the suburbs, the built-up areas, and they swaggered out. And they just really want to pick a fight with somebody. A lot of the police. That's just how they are. It's terrible, and that's what it is. And if
interesting, because you got that whole West Coast vibe is usually more laid back. Like pretty much everybody I know from there is usually
for the most part, it's a lot of that with the people, not with the police. I was in law enforcement as well, so I worked in a prison, and most of these correctional officers, basically they think that you're weak or something if you don't brutalize. I mean, don't mean physically, but
strict on the
you have to be, I don't know, maybe insulting and kind of or whatever, but then I don't know. And
you do get all types, though. I mean, generally, law enforcement's going to attract a lot of authoritarian personality types, just like government in general does, like military, politics. But you do get some people who are more, go with the flow and sort of things about things.
Well, one reason they do that in the prison, is not to be too nice or whatever, is because they manipulate you. And then they
try to get favors from you and stuff.
Yeah, I've gone through a lot of training. I don't know how many, about 20 weeks of, and stuff. And a lot of that is about manipulation. They try to manipulate you to do things, and then they can try to control you. They got a lot of time, and they see you every day, maybe, and so you just have to know what to expect, so that you can be still like cordial to these people, but you don't be buddies with any of these people anyway. So
okay, we're coming up on the 2-hour mark. It's gone quickly.
Time flies when you're having fun, huh?
Just got a couple of questions. Has anybody seen a bison in the wild here? A bison? Have you seen one?
Not in the wild.
I've seen one in a national park near Brest.
Well, in Baranovici, they have a animal park. It's huge. You spend the whole entire day there, and there's a lot of bison in there too, but not wild.
For me, no, none in the wilds. But for me, when I came here, we have bison in America too. It's like no big deal to me. We actually almost made them go extinct. The first Americans were going across country building the railroad, just shooting the bison for the hell of it. It almost made them to go extinct, and it took them decades now to rebuild their population.
They exported them from Belarus to America as well to the population.
Well, then that's technically not a European bison, almost like some sort of hybrid. That's a North American one. But no, I've never seen one. But I know that they are down there. That's more towards the primeval forest, which is down by the Polish border.
It's kind of by Brest, there.
Yeah, that area.
I wanted to go there when I was down there, but
Fast Jimmy's asking what percentage of the locals took the jab here.
I don't know.
Nobody talks about it, really.
Nobody talks about it.
Yeah, they don't. I mean, when it was going on, it was much less made of a big deal out of it here than in the West. When I left and came back here for the third time, it was in September of 2020, right before my son was born. And there was no lockdowns here at all. Everything was open and everything, but they had some, about a month after I got here, they started the mask thing.
But as soon as Lukashenko found out, they stopped it.
Yeah, we only went on for like 6 months or something.
No, it was only a couple of weeks.
Well, by the time I came here, they didn't have the mask.
As soon as he found out, that was it.
It wasn't enforced anyway. But I remember seeing that from television I was in the Caribbean at the time, and he had the Minister of Health standing the entire time. And what it was is somebody like in the Brest region over there was charging people. They started to charge people for not wearing a mask. And then Lukashenko said, no, this is all going to end now. This is a bunch of bull. And now it's not mandatory to wear a mask. And if you are caught trying to enforce anybody making somebody wear a mask, then you're in trouble. So
when I was here,
it was cool.
I remember they made you wear it when you go into the metro. Like you had to put it on as you're going through the security. But then as soon as you walk through, the guards don't even care. They just make you walk through the turnstile with it on. And then when you're walking down the stairs to get to the platform, you can just let it off, whatever.
Yeah, they seem to have treated everybody here like adults
Yeah.
instead of children like in the West.
And
Well,
they had
going
to,
into medical places, you had to wear them. I remember when I came here, even though you didn't have to wear them anywhere
hospitals.
else.
Yeah. I had to wear them in the polyclinics when I had to get my son's checkups and stuff. And when you were cashing out at the store, like you were like really close to the cash register, some cashiers, not all of them, would ask you to put if you had,
Really?
yeah, there were some of them. But that didn't last very long, and like you were saying, it wasn't enforced everywhere.
There were never any lockdowns.
Yeah, there was nothing really.
Yeah, I was flying from London to here because there was lockdowns. Come here, everything's open. Go to ice hockey, go to restaurants, everything was fine.
That's why my other Australian friend came around the same time to get away from, because Australia had some of the most brutal, ridiculous lockdown stuff out of the whole world, like totalitarian type of crap going on.
I saw videos. I don't know if there's any credence to these videos, but they're like running people down on the streets and vaccinating them or something like that.
No, not vaccinating.
Well, I'm not vaccinated.
Putting a mask on or
some
something.
protests and stuff. They were chasing them down with and tackling people and stuff. It was pretty wild. Yeah. And he got out of there.
That's why there's a lot of Australians. I've met more Australians than Americans, of course, here. And
I've been dealing with expats. I mean, you've been dealing for a lot longer than I have, but ever since I got dealing with them since 2013, 2014, it's like I meet a lot of Australians for some reason.
Yeah.
Even though it's a relatively small percentage of the population.
Well, it's because of, like I was saying at the begining about freedom. You didn't get forced to wear masks and all that. And it's just like, it's very strange. You got to think about. I think the government here, it gives you a choice to do things. No. And, you have to pay the price based on whatever choice you take. So,
yeah, there is a relatively high amount of freedom in that regard. And about the percentage of people vaccinated, I don't know. I did see there were like clinics that were opening up during that time, like behind supermarkets and around like shopping areas. Sometimes I'd see a clinic that was offering the vaccines. But I'm not vaxxed. My girlfriend isn't vaxxed. Our son isn't vaxxed. And my girlfriend's mother isn't vaxxed. So
most everybody I know isn't
vaxxed. Yeah, same with us. Yeah. None of us are vaxxed.
My mom is a retired nurse, though, a registered nurse in New York, though. And during that whole time, she was trying to push it on me and to get it and everything. I'm like, listen, for my age group, like the mortality rate is like less than 1%. I'm like, why? I'm like, I've had a bad experience taking pharmaceutical medications before, really bad experience. And, I don't see any reason to do it, especially with as little research as this one has behind it at this point. And we didn't get it. But she got like 2 or 3 of the boosters and everything. And, she's believes everything she's told on the TV over there and everything. So she wouldn't get
lucky
it.
that she's okay.
I guess she is, to some extent.
For now.
My brother didn't get it. His girlfriend didn't get it. So he's kind of aware of a lot of things like me, to some extent, and so he's not down with that.
Okay.
So I really don't know is the answer. I don't know what percentage of the population is vaccinated versus what is not. Nobody really talks about it, like you said.
Yeah. Like I said, they treated everybody like adults here.
Yeah.
Gave the information, and that was it. Okay, do you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, we should. I got that long journey home.
Long journey home. Okay, thanks, Duke. Steve, coming in.
Absolutely.
Until next time, everybody.
Yes, we'll see you again. Hopefully, tune in next time.
From the other side.
From the other side.
From the other side, that's right.
Okay, bye, everybody. Thanks for